Well, hello everybody. My name is Tom Cormier. I am the co-founder of the Living Legacy Project and also Legacy Stories. I want to thank you all a lot for joining me today. I know how valuable your time is. Now, what I will promise that is if you stay with me for about the next half hour, I'm going to take much longer than that, hopefully not at all, you are going to walk away with a proven strategy that can actually secure the immediate and future success of your business. More importantly, it's going to make a big difference in the lives of the clients and the families that you serve. I have a lot to share, so probably the best thing to do is for me to get started by sharing a little bit of my background, which, by the way, is pertinent to this topic. All right, so back in the early 1990s, I pioneered the first commercial talk show on radio, and it was called Let's Talk America. You might have heard of it. Now, this aired on over 450 radio stations in the United States and Canada, and it was generating about a little more than $100 million a year in revenue. Very successful program. Now, the focus of that show was about improving people's lives through personal development. And my guests included some of the gurus of that era, from Zig Ziglar to Dennis Waitley and some of the others. And after about a 10-year run, my business partner and his wife tragically lost their lives in a plane crash. And needless to say, my wife and I were devastated. That's an understatement. And then a few weeks later, his estate attorney called so that she could help settle his affairs. She wanted to introduce me to one of his clients, and his name was Dennis Stack. And he was training hospice caregivers how to record life stories of their dying patients. And he was looking for a strategic partner so that he could expand his program. Of course, having just lost my best friend, who also had two beautiful children, this really resonated with me, and it interested me. I was eager to talk to him. So it turns out he left a 20-year career as a wealth manager, and his story for leaving that career is going to explain why this webinar is so important and how it can dramatically affect the future of your business. So let me share his story with you. So Dennis lost his mother after a 5-year battle with Alzheimer's, and then just a year later he lost his father, and this was when his only daughter was just 2 years old. And as is the case with so many families, his parents almost never talked about their past. Because Dennis was a workaholic, he was always way too busy to ask. And then, of course, like so many people who always say they wish they knew more about their parents and grandparents before they died, it was too late for him. So not only did he regret not knowing more about his parents' past, but he also realized that his daughter is never going to know anything about her grandparents, how they grew up, their dreams, their aspirations, their life lessons. She was going to be denied a chance to gain any wisdom from their experiences. This weighed on him so much that it got him to the point where he compiled a list of questions that he had wished that he asked his own parents. And then he had those printed in a booklet, and then he put it together with a cassette tape recorder, just like you see here, and some blank tapes. And then he gave it to his best clients as a Christmas gift that year, instead of the typical bottle of wine or the token gift of appreciation. All told, he probably had, what, $30 per client invested in this gift? But what he never anticipated was the emotional impact that this simple gesture would have on his clients. He started getting personal phone calls and letters from his clients, and they were saying how much they appreciated such a thoughtful and meaningful gift. And I put quotes over those words because that was the emphasis they kept using. He never got any more than a thank you card in any other year, so he knew he touched a nerve. And so he began to realize that in all the time that he was doing a great job helping his clients pass down their valuables, it was their values that really struck home on an emotional level. So what he did was he decided to change the conversation with his clients by showing a deeper interest in their personal life story. Now, this is a pretty profound move because it not only made his job so much more fascinating and enjoyable, but he actually got to know his clients at a much more personal level. And he noticed that they started treating him more like the family advisor, not the financial advisor, as a family advisor, more like a trusted friend than the money guy. And because of this trusted, more personal relationship, his clients started giving him more of their business. Then they started enthusiastically referring him to their closest circle of friends and family members. I got to say, Dennis is one personable guy. Don't get me wrong there. But he never got this type of support ever in his entire career. He knew he was onto something, and he felt like it was some kind of a calling, actually. So even while his book of business was growing bigger and faster than he ever had, he wanted to make a much bigger difference. So what he did was he took his booklet and his recorder kit to hospice, where being remembered was a very high priority, to say the least. And then what he did is he enhanced his questions and his methods, and he trained over 5,000 hospice caregivers how to effectively interview their patients and record their stories when it was their last chance to make a difference, as time was running out. Everybody was enriched by that experience, including the patient who regained a sense of purpose, and then the family who can still to this day hear the voice of their loved one. What a treasure. And then the caregivers themselves found much more enjoyable in such a difficult job. Hear thousands of amazing stories of ordinary people whose life lessons and experiences would have otherwise been lost forever. And with millions of our elders passing away each day, then he realized that we're on the brink of losing the greatest body of wisdom in history, as more and more baby boomers get diagnosed with Alzheimer's while their parents are passing away in droves. And having experienced all of this with his own parents, including hospice, he wanted to get more elders to have a legacy conversation way before they were too sick to talk. And he needed help to reach them and their families. So this obviously got my attention. And we got together, and after a weekend of brainstorming, we became business partners there. And then first thing we did was we launched the Living Legacy Project in 2007. This was to rescue the greatest body of wisdom in history before it is lost forever. Our mission is to provide families with the essential education and tools to have a legacy conversation with their elders and record their life lessons and experiences for posterity. And after almost a decade of research, trial, and error, we then determined that the most efficient way to reach baby boomers and their parents was through professionals who served them when leaving a legacy was at a high priority. So what we did was we developed industry standards for life review in the senior care continuum and for providers. And today, many of the nation's largest providers are using our methods and resources. And then in just the past year, with Dennis's wealth management and estate planning experiences, we started developing best practices for these industries too. So now, it doesn't matter if you provide families with life insurance, annuities, financial retirement, or estate planning. Your most lucrative demographic is going to be probably baby boomers, let's face it. And while we were researching baby boomers, especially aging baby boomers and their behaviors, and looking at the current state of the financial services industry, we discovered some really important information that you may be aware of, but maybe you're not aware of, that could determine the success or failure of your business. So let me share that with you. So if you're like most advisors, you may be thinking that there's going to be a big windfall of business to be had just because of the great wealth migration that's underway and the sheer volume of boomers out there that need your products and services. But as many of you may already know, it's really not so easy to earn the trust of baby boomers these days because they're a lot more cynical than their parents of the greatest generation. Boomers haven't forgotten about the devastating effects of the financial crisis, and before they entrust their money again to anyone, they're going to be a lot more careful about choosing the right person behind the product than ever before. They've heard all the pitches. They know all the angles better than any generation before them. They're more cynical than ever, and you know it doesn't take much for them to jump ship at the slightest market downturn or any problem with your service. Never before has a deep and trusted relationship been so critical. And then there's the female factor. Because the family matriarch has largely been ignored until recently. But they're the ones who are in line to control the money when the old man dies first. And now they're running their own businesses. They're amassing their own wealth. They're demanding a bigger role in the future of the family. And they want their voices to be heard. It's taking a lot more time and expenses to secure each client these days. So you're going to need to generate more business from the clients that you've worked so hard to get. And then to keep those clients in your fold as long as possible. And that is the way of the future. But to do this, I'm afraid you're going to have to face the stark reality that 9 out of 10 heirs are going to fire their parents' advisor after receiving their inheritance. And this means, when you really think of it, this means you're going to have to replace 90% of your, up to at least 90% of your client base in order to maintain your income. And the same, you're going to have to maintain 90% of your client base so that you can maintain the value of your business when it comes to time for selling it. And according to a 2013 survey, 75% of heirs haven't even ever met their parents' advisors. So the winds of change are blowing, and they're going to start gusting at hurricane force as more baby boomers retire and they start entering their golden years. Only those advisors who adapt to this change are the ones who are going to succeed. I'm afraid that's the truth. And that's why it's so critical to know what drives boomer sentiment and how to communicate in a way that shows that you understand them with a high degree of empathy. Now, what I'm saying is not theory or a prediction. It's simple fact. And the financial services industry is finally starting to make its move in this direction. In fact, I attended a 2016 Raymond James Advisor Development Conference where one of their top 100 advisors, Sherry Burnham, delivered she delivered a TED Talk on this issue to over 1,000 advisors. I took a few pictures from the back of the room so you can see how she introduced the concept of holistic financial planning. This is one that incorporates both the values and the valuable side of the wealth equation. So the main emphasis obviously was on the importance of changing the conversation to become much more familiar with their clients' personal and family history in order to better guide them in their decisions for the future. A little unabashed promotion here. You can see in this slide how she featured our handbook as a tool to start the legacy conversation. But the bottom line is, this emerging legacy wave is it's coming ashore. It's breaking now. And I'm going to teach you now how to surf it all the way in. So what do baby boomers care most about when it comes down to passing down an inheritance? Well, if you gauge your answer on past generations, you'd be right to assume that it's all about the money, which is certainly a big issue because nothing's going to destroy a family faster than arguing over a financial inheritance. So Helping them accumulate the wealth, make sure that their heirs get the most from their money is very important, of course. But look at this Allianz study that asked baby boomers to rank their priorities when passing down an inheritance. You could see that they place a much higher value on their family history and stories and their life lessons and values that they do with their money. I mean, it's not even close. And that's because this generation they've had the benefit of seeing what happens when heirs receive wealth without the wisdom that created it. They know. Let's see. Yeah, they know how quickly the cake is eaten. And what they want to do is they want to pass down the recipe so the inheritance can make a difference for generations to come. And this, my friends, is where you can turn an uncertain future for your business into one of the most fascinating, long-lasting businesses anywhere to be found. All you have to do is know how to begin and sustain the right kind of legacy conversation. I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, let me teach you something about the human element before you just start asking questions. Now, not everyone is completely comfortable sharing their story, and everybody's different. And after interviewing thousands of seniors in the most difficult circumstances, we discovered several barriers that need to be considered. So you can see over here that, first of all, humility is a big deal, especially with older people. They're many of them are uncomfortable talking about themselves. I mean, these days, the millennials videotape every time they have lunch, for heaven's sakes. But maybe not so much this generation. They don't necessarily feel that anyone would be interested in their story. And ask yourself, you may even be a boomer now and you'd be thinking some of these things yourself. Maybe you don't think that they don't think that they have a story that's actually worth telling. And then they have to think that maybe they have to be a good storyteller to be interesting, or that they have to perform. They don't want to have to perform. All these kinds of barriers that get in the way. And we figured out ways to overcome those barriers. And so keeping all this in mind, what we did was we created a 4-step progression that gets the conversation going. I'm going to take you through that progression right now. And it's going to demonstrate how to get the conversation going in a meaningful way. Now, in this scenario that I'm going to share with you, I'm not going to bother to include any questions or anything like that about client's financial status or anything related to your service. I assume you know what to ask in that regard. The process that I'm going to talk about is actually can be easily part of the get-to-know phase of a new client, or you could schedule a private meeting with your existing clients and open up this kind of conversation. So as I start to go through this, it's not that much. I want you to get prepared with a pencil and paper so you can write down these questions, and I'm going to have this recorded so you can go back, and if it goes too fast, you can go get them in the replay. Okay, so I do highly encourage you to write them down. Now, these are only suggestions, and because they're not necessarily, I don't know your clients. Okay, so the goal here is basically just to show a sincere interest in the lives of your clients beyond what they normally expect, and that so that you yourself can really gain instant insight into what drives your client. And that, you're going to see how powerful this is. So let me go over here. First of all, in either way, what you want to do is you want to start with a few simple warm-up questions that act as icebreakers. Now, these are going to be basically your easy conversational questions, and they don't require much thought or reflection. And basically you want to just start talking to them about what's happening in their life today. And again, these are just suggestions, any kind of conversational questions just to break up the ice. What's been keeping you busy these days? Have you traveled anywhere? How's your health been? Just basic conversations so that they start to get to meet you. And this can, you can do 1, 2, 3 questions. You can do, just keep this going for a little while, depending on the time that you have allotted. Just kind of warm things up and get them friendly. Okay. And then we move into what we call the transition. This is where once you get kind of past the niceties, you kind of can start to talk about, have them not talking about themselves, have them talk about their parents. You can ask them questions about their parents. Just let them know, I want to learn a little bit more about you and your personal history. Tell me a little bit about your parents. What do you know about them? And ask questions like, and these are not yes/no questions. Be sure to make them open-ended questions, because this is a whole different way of framing a question when you're saying, like, what character traits did you inherit from your parents, rather than saying, did you inherit any, character traits? They could be simple as saying yes. And so this starts the conversation going like that. And these are the kinds of things that when you ask, what are some of the core values that your parents instilled in you? Did they ever talk to you about money? Is there any kind of financial advice that you received from them that maybe you still apply today or that you wouldn't apply today? Those kinds of questions, just get them thinking. But you can see that when they have when they start answering these questions, you're not just asking them, you should be leaning in, because when they answer these, you're going to be listening to something that's you're going to really see under the hood of your client. And it's going to hopefully provoke you to reply with maybe a follow-up question to the question that they started. And all you're trying to do in here is to continue the conversation, but now focusing it more on the things that they may have inherited from their parents. Get them talking about parents and that part of their history so they can start to transition into now their own life after that. So then we're going to go to what I call the inspiration phase. And this is a big part of the conversation, because when you get in here and they start feeling more comfortable with you, you can start asking questions about, has your faith guided you? How has your faith guided you in your life? You might find some powerful information coming out of that right there. What attracted you most about your spouse? This starts to, you might learn some interesting things there too. And don't forget, you can follow up with another question and be ready for that, and you'll find these conversations so wonderful. And then especially, what inspired the career path that you chose? I highly recommend asking that question, because no matter what they're doing and how successful they are or whatever they're doing in their life, it's what inspired them to get in it. When you can get back that far, that's going to really tell you. And a lot of these other things like faith and some of the core values will also give you the kind of like the steering mechanism of how that was guided through their success. And when you kind of get that knowledge of a client, the whole thing changes. And understand, while you're having this conversation, you're leaning in, you're following up with questions, and once they begin to open up, they are literally sharing some of the most intimate parts of their life with you. You're really transcending the financial aspects, the business side of things right here in this little phase. And this is all really in one meeting, probably, half an hour or an hour meeting that you're having with them. It's even part of what you're already doing. Have this conversation. It's going to change your relationship and their perception of you. Then we get into what I call the realization phase, and this is where it really requires them to do some reflection. And sometimes this might, you don't want to get too heavy here, but there are kinds of things that you want to now take them to that next level, where you require them to actually think for a second. They're not really telling you something about themselves. They have to kind of think about what it is they want to say. Different than what were your, different than if we went back here. They know what their faith, how their faith guided. They know what was most attractive about them. These things they know. Here they have to think about them. And these are kind of, nuanced, but they're important. And just think what kinds of answers can come out of these questions like this. And there are many others you could ask like this, or that these would require a follow-up question. And this could really start to get fun. Things like, what would you do differently if you had the chance? What's your definition of success? We've all been asked that. and so I'm sure that you've had to answer it before. So what is it? And, what are your wishes for the future of your family? These are great sample questions here, okay? So having this initial conversation, let me just go over here, is a very powerful experience. And it can actually, that all by itself and just that one meeting, it can accomplish the personalization that you need so that you can build that all-important trust with the client. But if you really want to get more clients and even more referrals on a continuing basis, like what happened to Dennis, then what I say is you should really continue the legacy conversation and then offer to record their oral history. And this is profound if you do this. Now understand, these people don't have anybody to turn to who is doing this. And just knowing that they can get together with you and have this accomplished, and especially now that you've exposed the fact that, I can tell a pretty good story. That's what will be accomplished in this initial conversation. I guess I do have a story worth telling. I think there is some value in what I'm doing. By the way, you're bringing an immense amount of value to your client. You're already bringing your own value, but just think what you are bringing is value to your family to do this. And then you say, well, here's how this works. Okay, so you have that initial conversation. And what I do is having these Tuesdays with Maury type meetings. You know the book. All that's required is basically then having them understand how powerful the information is that they have an incredible story worth telling, and that this may be the greatest wealth that they own, and they're passing this down. A lot of them don't even realize they have to be asked in the survey why it's important to them, but a lot of them haven't really don't even realize it when you brought it to their attention, and then you demonstrate what they hold in their possession. They're going to appreciate you saying, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of history there, and I know we got busy lives. How about we set up a little meeting, like something that we can make that investment in time, just kind of like Tuesdays with Maury in that book. What we'll do is we'll set aside a specific day and time each month, like, say, every third Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's where you can ask more legacy questions and record their stories. And all you need is a typical digital voice recorder, or you can use the one that's built right into your smartphone. It's really that simple. You just need more questions, and you just have the conversation going. Only this time you kind of get to know each other. And you know something? A lot of people feel more comfortable talking about their life story to a third party than even their own family. Who's going to answer this call? Who better to answer this call? Okay? So the benefits of having regular ongoing legacy conversations, they're immense. Okay? I mean, first of all, you have a chance to meet with your clients more frequently without only talking about the money. You have the chance while you're there to discuss any changes in the family dynamic and offer solutions. And you can do this bi-monthly, monthly, do it every quarter, however much you want to do this. You set it up. And it gives you a chance to deepen the relationship so that you become that family advisor, get away from the financial advisor status. And more importantly, you're going to get to introduce and bring the extended family and the immediate and extended family into the conversation. And because, the more you talk about their past, and especially the matriarch, you want to bring the matriarch and the heirs into these conversations as well and have them share what they know. You then start to establish relationships with them. They now are not going to necessarily, dump you if the old man dies right off the bat. That's the whole idea. You become that family advisor because you care and you show interest in them. And, hey, you're providing a simple service once every month for an hour of your time that they invest the time, you invested as well. And you're going to get down to the business or associates part. You can meet their business partners, associates, and colleagues, and they may become clients just in the course of conversation because now you're not selling them anything, and they're not, resisting. They're your friend. And more importantly, you can generate high-quality referrals because the family is going to become more engaged with their own legacy. And for, fee-based professionals, estate planners, and people that operate like that, it's a great way for you to bundle up some packages of, 5 sessions, 10 sessions once a month, something like that. And you can package them into prices, include some of your other services in it. And this is a great way to do this because what you're doing is you're tapping into the emotions of the client, and that will pay off bigger than just trying to go at it and get more money out of their wallet, okay? Let them give you the money happily because they're tied to you emotionally. So let's wrap this up, okay? We know that boomers know that wealth without the wisdom that created it is wasted. We know that they want to, by the Allianz survey, it indicates that they clearly want to pass down their values more than their valuables, and that, in fact, only a small fraction of these people have made any provisions for this, which is an unbelievable opportunity for an advisor to walk right in there and provide that service. It's just ridiculous. They want to make a difference. You can help them do that. What kind of value can you bring to them just by talking? They need a trusted advisor, and they need that trusted advisor to initiate the conversation, to facilitate it. Why not you? At the same time, you need to know your client in order to be successful. And this certainly applies to financial advisors who are going to be subjected to the DOL fiduciary rule. Is there any better way to be able to prove that you're working in the best interest of your clients when you are having these kinds of conversations with them? That is a non-issue going forward. It really can help you to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. I mean, let's face it. Everybody thinks that if we get into this big, migration of wealth, if I can pour in there and get my share of it, well, yeah, that's what's happening, and it's flooding the market. And it's like robo-services. Everything's the same. Where's the differentiation? It's going to come in the personalization. That's where it comes. And you see where the behaviors are. If you tap into that, that's where your future can grow. And in all the competition in the world isn't going to come in just because they can save you $20 or whatever. And most importantly, legacy conversations are fascinating and incredibly enriching. Your life will change when you learn about some of the people that you're already doing business with, when you really get to know them. And their life is going to change when they begin asking about your life. And you just can't, there's nothing that you can do to buy that. And there's a tremendous need out there. Everybody wins when you're having legacy conversations. Oh, yeah, on that subject, by the way, we know that the fastest road to business success is to find a need and fill it. I don't know about you, but I see a huge vacuum here that is so unfulfilled. It has built-in urgency. It has a strong emotional desire. You are already sitting with the clients who want this. They just need to become aware that they do want it. And the studies have shown, the surveys show they do. They just don't know it yet. When you introduce this, you're going to bring value to them, the likes of which it's immeasurable. Okay? I hope you were inspired by this web class and that you not only start incorporating legacy conversations into your regular business practice, but even more important than that, start having your own legacy conversations with your children. And if you're so lucky to have your parents still living, don't procrastinate. Make your next visit a legacy visit and start the conversation with them before you regret it, like Dennis and so many other families have. So if you have any questions, please call either me or Dennis, or you can email us. And you can learn more about us on our website, of course. And I know how busy you are, and so I really do appreciate you taking the time for this today. And so now go out and make a difference by changing the legacy conversation. I thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it.